The People's Republic of China recognizes a total of 56 different nationalities living within its borders. Some of those nationalities are quite numerous. Such is the case with the Hui people, an ethnic group that predominantly adheres to the Islamic faith. 10.5 million Hui ethnics live in China, and about 20% of them are in the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Province. Hi, my name is Sebastian, and you're watching 7 Facts. Ningxia Hui is not a big place in Chinese terms. It's about the size of Georgia and houses only about 7.2 million people, which is not a lot in this country. The region is mostly a desert, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's barren. Parts of the Great Wall of China lie here. Ancient canals built in the past 2,000 years still hold water, and with the lands to this day, there's a mixture of cultures, traditions, and landscapes like in no other part of China. Although Ningxia has long been one of the poorest areas in the country, it's by no means a dull and ignorable place. So, what do you say? Shall we find out more? Since times immemorial, the lands of Ningxia Hui have been a frontier zone. Here, nomadic pastoralists and warriors clashed with the sedentary way of life of farmers. As a result, very early on, Ningxia became the scene of violence and war. Even so, the Qin dynasty managed to conquer and control these lands sometime in the 3rd century BC. But in order to keep control, military colonies, horse pastures, and trade centers were established. A great wall was also built to protect the lands from powerful armies like the Rangs or the infamous Huns. As time progressed, the region became slightly more peaceful and several cities managed to grow to a larger size. The Tanguts established their empire here in the 11th century AD. By their time, Ningxia Hui wasn't home just for the Han Chinese. Ethnic and religious diversity became the norm, and a Muslim and even a Jewish community were present. The Western Xia, or Tangut Empire, was then conquered. Actually, they were practically wiped out by the Mongols under Genghis Khan after a 22-year-long war. In spite of the destruction and slaughter that followed the Mongol invasion, Ningxia Hui kept on going. People from other provinces were relocated, canals for irrigation were continuously built, and soon the Mongol episode was nearly forgotten. Centuries later, Ningxia was again rocked by a major violent episode, the Dungan revolt. Also known as the Tongji Hui Revolt, this was a fully fledged war between the imperial forces and the Muslim populations of Ningxia, Shanxi, Xinjiang, and Gansu. The causes of the war are complicated to say the least, but it was a combination of corruption, ethnic tensions, class warfare, and of course, religious strife. The revolt started in 1862 and continued for 15 years. The results were horrifying. A total of 21 million people perished from massacres, forced migration and deportations, famine, and corpse-transmitted plagues. To give you an idea of the scale of the conflict, Ningxia was at the time part of the Gansu province. That province lost 75% of its population by the end of the war. When you hear these kinds of stories, you kinda get why historians repeatedly say that we live in the most peaceful times in history. But again, despite the horrors, Ningxia survived, it endured, and continues to live on. Ningxia's capital city is Yinchuan, the city of the Silver River. It's been around for a couple of thousand years, so it has seen its fair share of history, including some pretty bloody chapters. The now extinct Tangut people founded the Western Xia dynasty in the 10th century AD, and their capital was this city. But much of what the Tangut left behind was destroyed by the invading Mongol hordes of the 13th century, and they pretty much annihilated the entire population of Yinchuan. Many centuries later, in the 1800s, a Muslim uprising, the Dungan revolt, once again shook these lands of China, and this time, 100,000 Yinchuan residents were killed. Despite these horrific events, the city endured and survived, and we can actually say today that it's thriving. There are quite a few attractions that can capture the attention of some curious tourists, like the pagodas and mosques of Yinchuan, the royal tombs of the Xia, or the China West Film Studios. So, despite being a relatively small capital of only about 2 million people, Yinchuan is every bit as interesting as any other major Chinese city. The Great Wall of China in Ningxia is actually a collection of many walls covering over 1500 kilometers. This region has always been a place of military strategy, so the Ningxia walls were constructed over many historical periods, starting from the Warring States period of the 5th century BC all the way to the Ming dynasty of the 17th century AD. In this regard, Ningxia is known as an open-air museum of Great Walls. In addition, there are nearly 600 watchtowers, hundreds of beacons, forts, shelters, and trenches that are still around. While these relics and ruins are not as well preserved as the ones we're used to seeing in presentations, the Ningxia Wall is still spectacular and played a crucial role in the history and development of China. Adding to the list of spectacular ancient ruins in Ningxia are the Western Xia mausoleums. Spread over 50 square kilometers are some 250 tombs of imperial relatives and officials and 9 actual imperial mausoleums, all belonging to the ill-fated Western Xia dynasty. We don't know enough about this dynasty or the Tangut people that founded it, so the exploration and excavation of this area is still ongoing. The 9 emperors that were buried here reigned between the 10th and 13th centuries, all the way to the moment when the Mongols of Genghis Khan conquered them. By the way, these tombs are among the largest and best preserved imperial burial grounds in China. After the Mongol invasion, the tombs were severely damaged and then forgotten, only to be rediscovered by the Ming authorities. Nowadays, the site has been placed under protection, and there are still tombs actually whose occupant's identity we still don't know. Making movies is a Hollywood thing, right? No, of course not. There are lots of places where filmmaking is the main occupation. And Ningxia is one of those places. The Zhengbei West Film Movie City is one of the main attractions in the whole region. This is where lots of Chinese movies were shot, and all the props are still there for visitors to explore. Who knows, you might even discover that you have what it takes to be a movie star. While the sets are 100% related to Chinese classics and hit movies, and a Westerner might not be familiar with them, still, I mean, come on, these are actual movie sets. How cool is that? Now let's talk a little bit about the ethnics of Ningxia that stand out. The old, forgotten, and extinct Tanguts and the current Muslim ethnics of Ningxia, the Hui. First, the Tanguts. They used to be a nation that lived in these parts and founded the Tangut Empire, known today as the Western Xia dynasty. They spoke a Sino-Tibetan language, but there's not a lot we know about it. Their script, although similar to Chinese characters, was nevertheless different and unique. Now, the reason why we know so little about such a nation that even established an empire is because of the Mongols. In 1227, most of the written records of the Tangut, their art and architecture were pillaged and destroyed, and only small fragments remained. The nation itself wasn't all wiped out then and there, but they did go into a steep decline. The last traces of the Tanguts disappeared in the 16th century. The Hui, on the other hand, are very much alive and well. This is an ethno-religious group, meaning their faith is the main feature that unites their culture and ancestry. The Hui, as I said before, are adherents to the Islamic faith, and even though they are mostly Chinese speakers, they are not one and the same. Their cuisine and diet strictly follow Islamic laws, their dress code is typical of other Muslim cultures, not East Asian, and their language contains some Arabic and Persian influences. Nevertheless, the Hui are descendants of the Han Chinese, mixed with immigrants that followed the Silk Road from the Middle East and Central Asia. It's important to note that, because of such a varied background, the Hui are not a homogeneous group, but a diverse people with mixed cultural heritage, all resembling the Han Chinese in some ways, and all united by their faith in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. And that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Leave your comments downstairs, and if you wish to do so, you can help out this channel through my Patreon page. I do hope to see you next time. Bye.